Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, tomorrow, California voters are going to decide whether to keep or recall Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom in a closely watched test of pandemic culture war politics. Now, Newsom has faced right-wing criticism for lockdowns and mask mandates, coupled with voter dissatisfaction over a whole range of issues spanning from homelessness to the extreme droughts and fires that have racked that state. But really, the recall gained a lot of traction when these photos emerged of Newsom and his elite friends celebrating a birthday at a fancy restaurant called the French Laundry, while the commoners were under full pandemic lockdown. Now, overall, Newsom's approval rating has actually remained pretty decent, but the recall's political dynamics gave Republicans a real shot at victory here. Their theory of the case was that while recall supporters were fired up and angry with Newsom, liberal recall opponents, they were kind of apathetic and that they might not show up to vote at all. The design of the recall itself also gave Republicans a chance here. Voters are asked two questions on the ballot. First, they're asked, do you support recalling Gavin Newsom? And then second, they ask, who would you replace him with? So because the first question doesn't directly pit Newsom against a particular Republican candidate, the theory went that it would be easier for independents and even some Democrats potentially to vote in favor of the recall without really thinking through the consequences of ending up with a Republican governor. Now, in early August, things were actually looking pretty good for this strategy. The Delta variant was surging, the leading Republican opponents were largely undefined, and the 538 average of polls tightened all the way to a tie, something we covered here. But since then, things have changed pretty dramatically. Now, we always take polls with a grain or 100 grains of salt. However, Newsom is now the overwhelming favorite with a 15-point edge. Turnout shows Democrats flocking to the polls, and Republicans have generally watched their high hopes crash and burn. So what happened here? Well, it would appear that the GOP overplayed their culture war hand, flocking to an incendiary candidate that Newsom easily tied to Trump and defined as extreme. As right-wing talk show host and classic boomer Republican Larry Elder surged, the Newsom campaign pounced, shifting the race from being a referendum on Newsom to being a choice between Newsom and Larry Elder. And Elder, with his many years as a right-wing commentator, certainly gave them plenty of material to work with. Here is Governor Newsom at a recent rally with Kamala Harris, reminding voters Elder said that climate change is a crock and tying him to that extreme anti-abortion law that just passed in Texas.
The extreme weather we're experiencing, the likes of which we've never experienced in our lifetime. And we've got someone by the name of Larry Elder that believes climate change is a myth, believes it's a crock, and believes the answer to climate change is increasing offshore oil drilling. That's his solution. Someone that doesn't even believe in the Clean Air Act. That's Larry Elder. Someone that celebrates what just happened to women in Texas and is celebrating the prospect of overturning Roe v. Wade.
Elder's previous comments justifying discrimination against women in the workplace have also become an issue, along with his suggestion that women just weren't smart enough to understand the nuances of the free market, which was why that they favored Democrats. The revelation of those comments does seem to be having an impact. Women are overwhelmingly backing Newsom and turning in ballots at high rates. But perhaps the most telling argument, and also the most relevant to national politics, came in a closing ad from Newsom.
What's at stake in the September 14th recall? It's a matter of life and death. With Delta surging, Gavin Newsom is protecting California, requiring vaccination for health workers and school employees. The top Republican candidate? He peddled deadly conspiracy theories and would eliminate vaccine mandates on day one, threatening school closures and our recovery. Stop the spread. Return your ballot or vote in person by September 14th. Protect California by voting no on the Republican recall.
By the way, for those of you who are listening, that ad features a shot of top GOP contender Larry Elder all cozied up to President Trump. But perhaps even more significantly, it centers explicitly on Newsom's support for vaccine mandates and Elder's opposition. Keep in mind, over 80% of eligible Californians have gotten at least one shot. That compares to about 74% of eligible Americans overall. Now, the vaccine resistant are a pretty small minority in this state, as they are at this point nationwide. And looking nationwide, support for vaccine mandates actually dwarfs the opposition. An AP poll prior to Biden's vaccine or test announcement found that a majority of Americans favor vaccine requirements for all in-person workers, while only 26% oppose. 23% were undecided on the question. One would have to assume that the California numbers on vaccine mandates are even more clear-cut. Whatever your own position is on the issue, politically, it would certainly appear that Democrats are in the strong majority on vaccine requirements. And make no mistake, COVID is still the defining issue of our time. Republicans in California bet on voter hostility to pandemic restrictions. Democrats bet on voter hostility to the pandemic itself. With those two options pitted head-to-head, Democratic enthusiasm has skyrocketed and Newsom has opened up what looks to be a 15-point lead. Now look, it's California. It's a solidly blue state. The polls also haven't closed yet, so let me throw in my caveat that anything can happen. But the abrupt reversal of fortunes for Republicans in the state as culture war lines have hardened is a telling indicator. Terry McAuliffe and Virginia Democrats, they're leaning into a similar approach, as is Joe Biden clearly at the federal level. Biden is practically begging for a Republican meltdown over his new vaccine or testing requirements. Now, I am still generally of the opinion the Dems are pretty much screwed for the midterms, but it looks like Democrats have decided to fully join the culture war fight. Vaccine mandates are the new dividing line, and they are spoiling for the fight. I'm curious though, Sagar, what do you think is the reason for Elder and the Republicans' complete collapse here? Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.